So I started thinking that, okay, what is this next 10 years mean to me? What do I not do today which I'll regret when I turn 50? So this is how this whole notion of that, hey, let me pick up a social problem and work on that right now when I still have uh, physical, mental rigor where I can run around hustle. Because when you start a new company, you're again back to square in terms of figuring things out, building team and whatnot. So it was a tough decision, but in the interest of that, I took some very large decisions for my life.
To be very honest, if I was a VC, I wouldn't have funded myself. Like, that was how bad the presentation was.
To build scale, you have to think scale.
Sometimes I think too much of money restricts innovation. I think that's a sad part.
So destiny finds you on the road that you take to avoid it.
Whenever you get seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask which seat.
We didn't really ask ourselves like too many questions in terms of how big can we get it.
So it was very, very hard to explain what is UGC.
If we want to implement something, first dirty our own hands.
For me, 1 million to 10 million is where scale.
So again, we had basic teams, struggle, but every day was just learning, which was just amazing.
Listen to founders about their stories and how they built their startups. Here on Maharajas of Scale, with me, your host, Krishna Jonakadla, co-founder of Mango Mobile TV and Vouch. Hey everyone, welcome to another fantastic episode of Maharajas of Scale. Lucky me, I today happen to be hosting Amit Gupta of Yulu Bikes. I've been watching what Amit's been doing on the roads and the kind of change that he's actually working on. India has a massive transportation problem. For those of you who heard us talk about Quick Ride some time ago, will relate to some of our philosophical underpinnings of how we believe in what Amit is doing. So in some sense, I'm a fanboy of what Amit is doing, the approach that he's bringing. Amit, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Krishna. It's my extreme pleasure to be with you today.
Wonderful. So Amit, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So Yulu is my technically third startup. And before this, I co-founded InMobi. And prior to InMobi, there was a small startup I did on the business intelligence space, which I ran for almost 1 year. InMobi, you can say technically was one interesting effort where we are trying to relook at advertising, and there was TV, there was newspaper, there was radio, and there was actually no need to reinvent advertising. But as you know, that advertising follows the eyeball and people and the media spend people are doing, and which happened to be mobile phone in our generation. But back then, when we started InMobi, it was only feature phone, and people were using phones for talking and maybe texting. But there was an underlying belief that this device will do more than just talking and texting, and I think we were correct. And in a sense, a new category was created. It took us 10 years. Now InMobi is getting ready for an IPO. So hopefully it will be a good outcome for the stakeholders. And then during my InMobi journey, I also worked on an interesting product called Glance, which became another company, and that also became a unicorn. And that was also very bold and crazy idea. That how can someone do something on lock screen. That also basically went well, so thankfully. And then Yulu happened. And Yulu happened based on my own personal story, where my home to office journey was taking close to 7 minutes, like when we started InMobi office on Outer Ring Road. And that started becoming 40-45 minutes, and sometimes you don't know when you will actually get to office. And I was turning 40. I thought that this is a time I should pick up some social problem. And me being a little bit selfish and biased with my own challenges of mobility, I thought let me solve that. And also thought that I should do something on the air quality, which is a linked point. So that's how the idea of Yulu was born, and I thought that I should commit myself 100% on this.
Very interesting. In fact, hats off for bringing the social angle. I recently heard a guest that we had on our show, Monica Mehta, who's in Wadhwani Foundation, talk about Indians being problem complainers most of the time. It's the first time somebody used that phrase, and problem solvers are in a minority. If anything, we possibly have another third category, which are problem contributors, which is for the ones that are actually solving the problem. There are a new set of people that mushroom out of nowhere. But it's interesting. Thanks for sharing that chronological arc. I'll come back to that social angle a bit. You really touched a nerve there. But let's go back even before InMobi and even before your first startup. Have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Maybe the cool answer is not to say yes, but answer is yes. So I do come from a business family, and somehow it tricked my parents that let me go and do some higher studies and then let me work for some companies, and I'll come back to you and join your family business after maybe 1 or 2 years of experience. Okay. And that day never happened. And even when we started my first company, it was again not cool to be an entrepreneur. It was an unknown entity. It was kind of a breed where something miserably wrong has happened. At least I'm talking about Indian context. While back in the valley, Silicon Valley, entrepreneurship was treated and seen differently and with respect. But in India, if you are trying to do something on your own, you must have lost your job or your mind. So that's why I'm saying that it was not cool to be an entrepreneur back then.
So you told your family you were going to work and then come back, and what business is your family?
I grew up in Kanpur, and my family is into manufacturing of plastic goods and also some trading work. So a typical families okay. Back in hinterland, UP, what so that was my family setup.
Interesting. And how was it always sort of a gambit or a question mark in your mind that let me just satisfy my family's ask that I join the family's business, so I'll just put them off for some time and then keep trying something on my own? Or was there always a desire to say, okay, I will?
So I think the core was to do something on my own, whether it is within the family or outside of the family business. I honestly did not know, but you can say the gene or DNA of entrepreneurship was there. And after seeing technology, after seeing how businesses can be created on the back of just digital innovation, it nudged me to do something outside, because I could not have imagined doing something in my family business, which is like called today startups of the world.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting you're contrasting technology and manufacturing.
Also, they are coming together now. They are coming together, but yeah.
I think in some way, but yeah, so much of manufacturing is technology driven these days. But those days, when you came out, India was still not known for technology startups. We did have a handful of them, mostly portals, if you will, right? You had India.com, you had Sifi.com, and then perhaps I'm thinking early 2000s is the time that you're talking about. If for those of us who were in either the premier institutes or moved around in certain circles and picked up the .com rush and all the euphoria that was going on, I think it was easy to imagine. But post the crash, we also had a lot of people say, okay, this is just it was euphoria. So how did you rationalize that yes, technology is going to be the growth engine? because I always see that the biggest belief system, and as it's commonly called, the punt. A punt is always taken when you don't have that visibility, right? So, for example, when you talk about Naveen starting up InMobi, when there were just feature phones, and in addition to the feature phone, all that existed was the BlackBerry. And on BlackBerry, there was the browser that was loading, but there was very little thought about advertising on that, right? So it is feisty and then a big punt for somebody to take that leap. So it seems like you also have that streak in you. How did you make that connection, the technology and building something would be
I think the answer is a combination of what you are saying. Sometimes you don't even know what's going to come. Or if it will come, but at the same time, some instinct says that this is going to be big, and you just align your forces towards that. And I think in the case of InMobi particularly, it was ahead of time. Our earlier hunch of that, we will do something on SMS, that was short-lived. It only lived for one year. Then we pivoted to something else. So one thing which remained common was that we're still talking about mobile phone, but mobile phone also started, there was a lot of evolution. iPhone came, Android came, and then we never looked back. Difficult for me to say that can someone get trained on this. Sometimes you do have those intuitions. At least in my case, while I will not call as my a kind of a geek god in just coding, etc., but my first job with a startup in Bangalore, which was like on the likes of Infosys and Wipro, so it was called Aditi Technologies, and who also happened to have a product called Talisman. Yes, so I worked for Aditi
very well.
Although I was not part of Talisman, but I saw that there is some usage of technology which this company is doing. But then later I joined Citibank, and in Citibank I was part of their digital transformation team, and I firsthand saw that this is how something which has been taking 1 week to do, using technology I can do it in a matter of one hour. And to me it was that wow moment that you are transforming the traditional businesses to much more efficient and maybe making accessible for everyone. And truly ask me, did I have that level of clarity what I'm trying to extrapolate? Answer is again no. But I started feeling good about usage of technology into the real world problem or real world businesses. Let me put it that way. InMobi was the same phenomena, where one thing we have started seeing that even these auto rickshaws and people in the lower income startup, they started using mobile phone. It started becoming their almost their earning device or their way where they can make some earning. So thinking about that, there will be more consumption and advertisement will happen next, was little bit outlandish. It was not an easy extrapolation, but gut feeling was that a lot of things are happening. There were a lot of SMS being sent. Let us do something, and that belief led to we picking up that area, and then area started evolving. So sometime you thinking about it and ecosystem also come together. So for example, in India, we talk about lot of internet revolution led by Jio. So trust me, whatever instinct or intuition you have, but you were not controlling Jio. It was Mukesh Ambani who had this dream of giving internet to everyone, and then you happen to come together at that point of time, or demonetization in the case of Paytm. He was not anticipating, no one knew, it happened. And education, you look at what is happening to Byju's and an academy, they just happen to be there when this whole explosion happened. So I think for InMobi particularly, this whole phenomena of iPhone and Android, that came, and then things started going up, and it was a game changer.
How did you? So the BI startup that you spoke about.
No, so after Citibank, I worked for another startup, which was an auction management space.
Okay.
So this company, back then was listing products, or there was a software to manage your listings on eBay. So eBay was the biggest phenomena. So today no one goes and buy or bid on eBay. They go and buy on Yahoo and Amazon. Actually, Yahoo.
Right.
So they used to have this platform where sellers can go list products and manage that. And I work. It was a Bay Area-based startup, so I worked very closely with the founders for almost 3 years. And after that, immediately after that, I started this company in BI space, where it was a combination of some product thinking and some service work. But when Naveen was moving back to India, and we were like batchmates from IT, so I thought maybe entrepreneurship is all about working together with people you love working, enjoy working. So I decided to move on from that company, and became founding team of InMobi.
Very interesting. Very interesting. At that point in time, Naveen, there are two things which I think are big. One is you had worked in Citibank, which is a pretty large organization, and in some sense, do you think the 3 years that you spent with that Valley startup, which was in auction listing, sort of prepared you?
Yeah.
Because it's a big jump, right? Because Naveen coming, yes, it's dost hai, which is a good thing, but then again, it is feature phones. The future is a lot hazy. Today, in spite of all the evidence that exists, take a fintech company for example. There is so much written about how India will be the sort of the torchbearer of innovation in fintech, but still, you talk to people and forget people outside of the ecosystem. People in the ecosystem, you show them everything. I don't think it can get really big. I get that kind of reaction from them. So it is interesting you made that leap. Let's talk about your early days at InMobi. You with Yulu, we'll come to Yulu in a second. You're seeing another scale journey, and you have seen. You're part of the initial team. You've seen a lot of scale happen, and you alluded to part of that being the smartphone revolution, the iPhone, and then Android ecosystems. But talk about a little more about the initial days and how it was, because the funding ecosystem hadn't developed, and like you said, today's startup is glamorous. Becoming an entrepreneur. And adding that entrepreneur tag has become glamorous, but it was not anything back then. How was it starting, and how did you guys survive? What were there any near-death moments? What did that?
As I said, that being an entrepreneur back then was not a norm, was not cool, and the type of challenges one has to go through in starting a company were enormous. So from fundraising, so there were hardly any angels. In fact, we were the first angel investment from Mumbai Angel, which is one of the oldest angel investors group in the country. And getting a space, hiring people with product thinking, people who can do some partnership deals. So all of that was all alien, and it was extremely difficult. And you're then talking about getting a product market fit, and you don't even understand what is a product thinking. There were no product managers in the country, so you were trying to juggle this way too many balls, and that's why back then starting something was not a norm. But thankfully, a lot of things started to get solved. For example, there was no AWS, so for us to even host our site was a tedious effort. We need to get a server for our service. Was another nightmarish situation. So those were the days, and but I think what kept us going, that we started seeing the value. So first few quarters were difficult because we just had to overcome a lot of these challenges, which are just simple one in current time. So just click a button, you have a AWS account set up. Just go and on a website you get a fancy space as at WeWork. So you don't have to worry about it. Hiring, a lot of people will come because you are a cool startup. But back then it was not easy. And then you're building a product market fit. So when we started, we actually struggled for first year because we were trying to do something on SMS where we were able to get some business, but we were not getting any retention on the advertising side. So they were like, okay, you took this 5 lakh rupees for me, but how much value did I get? No one knew because on SMS the tracking is very, very difficult, and they were very busy blowing their money on TV, on print, on radio. So they did not have any benchmark to even understand what is impact. And when the mobile internet thing happened, then the trackability and the accountability and the measurability actually became far better. And after that, we never looked back. So we were able to demonstrate that, okay, you were doing this much of money on other media, but look at what you are doing right now. So the fact that it was measurable, people can track that how much ROI they were getting, that started becoming a thing which started giving us a snowball effect in our next order from them, from the advertiser, that okay, I want to do more business with you, I want to do more business with you. So as I said, struggle were multiple fold. It was not just the product market fit, but even getting the basic setup up and running was a big thing.
Interesting. And then you've literally grown. You literally grew with InMobi. You've seen that company go through. And,
so Yulu started in.
When did you
so
start?
Service got launched in 2018 January, but we started a couple of months ago.
Okay. Couple of months ago. Okay. Interesting. So you've seen InMobi itself attain that unicorn status by the time you launched Yulu, right? And mobile advertising and all of that, in some sense, is still getting started. Things are getting more sophisticated. The next wave of battling privacy and cryptocurrencies, and there's a very sort of a healthy cocktail of interesting elements to battle out there. So was it like you saw that, okay, I've grown this, I've played my role, and I'm getting bored, so therefore it's time to start something from scratch? You briefly alluded to attaining 40 and then doing something which was your muse. Where all of those roles,
so yes, I started
in your decision,
that feeling that I am getting bored, but that did not happen when I was doing I was started thinking about Yulu, but it happened much prior to that, and that's where this whole notion of glance came into picture. So after almost 6 years or 7 years into the journey, actually maybe 8 years of the journey, all of the founders were like, okay, we have built this company, got it to this level, and I was chief revenue officer at running the revenue, and I was like, okay, how is my day meeting these customers, maybe doing some deal, and InMobi actually is a pretty head-heavy business where most of your money comes from the Fortune 500 customers. So those are only those much who will go, and although there is no limit for you to do more and more, but my typical week would be half of the time will be on the phone just talking to my team and how are things running, the sales pipeline and things like that. And was that the best use of someone like me who can also think, put things together, think a little bit more 5 years out, etc. So we decided that we should create some bandwidth from founding team to look at something new, moonshots. And that's where the idea came, where we thought that okay, we are competing with Google and Facebook, and what do they have which Yulu doesn't, which InMobi does not have? So we both had access to unique users of close to 1.5 billion unique devices. But they make that much money, we make only this much money. An idea, after some thinking, was very clear that okay, they basically get lot of share of time. So people will spend almost 25 minutes on Facebook and Google, and the depth of data what they have got is also very, very good because people spend time, they click on multiple things. But InMobi is working with publishers who are only exposing that much of data to you, and also only that much time you get. So we thought that, okay, why don't we sit on the device, and we can work with OEMs who are also looking for some ways to create value. So while this whole mobile internet has been going up, the handset manufacturers, particularly on Android, they were being marginalized. So their ASP is going down, their margins are going down, and they were looking for some lever to come back into the game, create value in this process. So we went with this value proposition that we said, you know what, why don't we co-create this product with you, where you give us this real estate, and then we'll build a user value proposition on top of it. So earlier there were a lot of they were very hesitant that what are you saying, that lock screen is very pristine, and if you show something, I don't know how users will react. But then with some experiments and the goodness of the product, where I don't know if you have seen Glance or not, but now every Samsung and Xiaomi phone in India, it gets pre-built. So out of the box experience, it became almost a feature. So we started noticing that, in retail shop, the salesman will show you, sir, this is a smartphone with a smart lock screen. Don't buy the other one. And then we started seeing that, okay, when you create a product that is really loved by the user, then everyone just wants to work with you. So we got Samsung excited, Xiaomi excited. So I did both of these deals, and got to business to a level where there was a product market fit and two very signature partnerships in hand. And I was having one of the best times of my life, where from problem statement, which was much larger than the problem itself, that how do we become relevant in front of Facebook and Google, to thinking about that, okay, what can we do, and then we building something and which is resonating like crazy, was very gratifying. And after that, another thought. So InMobi started, or my first company started and I thought that I will be starting a company before I turned 30. So I lived up to that. By 40, my wish was that I should be retiring. So it was not about that, oh, I'll do this, whatever you do, but okay, I'll be retiring. But that thought, when I started getting to that milestone, it was not an easy thought that I somehow just stop working and do something and relax. No, that is not going to happen either. So I started thinking that, okay, what is the next 10 years mean to me? What do I not do today, which I'll regret when I turn 50? So this is how this whole notion of that, hey, let me pick up a social problem and work on that right now when I still have physical, mental rigor, where I can run around, hustle. Because when you start a new company, you're again back to square in terms of figuring things out, building team and whatnot. So it was a tough decision, but in the interest of that, I took some very large decisions for my life, and I thought I never regretted them in retrospect. So thought that this is also a good idea. And by then InMobi was in a very strong situation as a business, and also Glance got to a reasonably high level of momentum and intensity. So I thought if there's a time, this is a time. So that's how my journey of YOLOscaling got started.
Amazing, and thank you for sharing that backstory on Glance. That was fantastic. I'm glad you went into that detail. So tell us, before we jump into the Yulu story and then the scale, tell us some numbers about Yulu. What sort of numbers you're seeing? What sort of that can do justice?
So we have. So while our journey started off with a pedal cycle, with the whole idea that we want to move people from these personal car, or for that matter taxis, where they are the only rider in the car 90% of the time. So our idea was that let us replace these journeys which are happening on big vehicles and which are also polluting the environment, on something which is much more sustainable. and we happened to pick the bicycle. And bicycle was just like a story of SMS, where there were people who were looking for using it, but we found that okay, if we need to solve that problem holistically, then probably we need to look at something more than that. So I'll come to this part later. But in terms of the top level metrics number, so Yulu has now 10,000 electric two-wheelers, and it makes Yulu as the largest electric mobility company in India. Just before this lockdown, we were clocking a little over a million trips on a monthly basis. And this number is actually also very interesting if I compare the pre-corona number and our March number. We grew 2.5x in terms of revenue and the trips. But in terms of profitability, which is even more important, our number went up by 3x. We have been operationally profitable since the
EBITDA
launch of
positive or
electric
operationally
mobility, and we are hoping to hit EBITDA positive state sometime this year.
Okay. Oh, amazing. Well, I'll come to that question in a little while. Why you would prioritize operational profitability this early? Because this is such a big problem to solve. But let's get into I'll call it the dirty problem. In India, most of the startups actually do not really solve social problems. We have enough problems, and then everybody's fancy statement is to say solve a real problem. And then every time somebody says that, I'm actually cringing inside, saying that, man, you're looking so intelligent right now, but I can reel off name one after other which is not solving the real problem. And then some of these are very, very celebrated startups, right? So I think we have got nothing against them, but what you're solving is a real problem, which involves working with civic agencies, which involves working with a lot of behaviors that are actually inbred or inborn in the Indian psyche. So let's contrast this. A couple of years ago, I was in Amsterdam, and if you've been to Amsterdam, if you're a fan of bicycles, anybody should go to Amsterdam. Especially outside of Amsterdam, there is this station called Utrecht. There is a city called Utrecht. Outside of Utrecht, you'll see piles and piles of bicycles. In fact, when we take a round around the canals in Amsterdam, the boatman who's actually giving you a tour will tell you that about 20,000 bicycles are actually stolen every single year, and thousands of bicycles are there. And the beauty of it is every single street there has a huge bicycle lane, not even the 3 feet bicycle lane that you see. So it's pretty fascinating. India doesn't have any of that, and civic agencies are not sensitive to that. I mean, they pay lip service to it in some form or fashion. And I'm a biker myself. I bicycle about on a good day I bicycle 30 kilometers per day. On another day average I bicycle about maybe 15 to 20 kilometers. That's sort of the average. So I'm in the community. But why pick up this? I can understand the social angle and all of that. Indians have a very sedentary lifestyle. There are very few that have an active lifestyle, infrastructure, and traffic chaos. I can't tell you the number of times I've had near misses bicycling, even in early morning. So why this problem? What's so fascinating? I know it's big. I for one, I mean, hats off to you. But did any of this factor, or you were just like,
okay, so you've asked a lot of questions. Just to set the context, Amsterdam is also one of my most favorite cities. I have been there multiple times. One of my co-founder is from Amsterdam. This is another interesting fact. And the canal tours which you did with a boatman, I actually did alone. I was able to sail the boat. I took it on. So I did a little bit more fancy stuff than you. Along with biking around, which is always fun. Now coming back to India, So you're right. It was kind of an insanely crazy idea what I am doing, and but one thing I realized that either you try to become a painkiller or you try to become a vitamin. And most of the startups, if I can, say it vaguely and crudely, so many of them are fascinated with being a vitamin. Where fine, this is cool, let me do it. Maybe this is painkiller for some, but to me it is more about. And there's also nothing wrong in that, to be very honest, because as a country we are basically moving up. So in your own Maslow's law of the pyramid, you move up. But to me, after doing certainly in Mobi, so forget the first company what I did, doing anything which was not super complicated was not a choice. And Glance was, you can all practical reasons say that it was another entrepreneurial journey. So yes, I could have picked up some problem and did some tick mark, but I actually got to a point that if I am not personally worried about that problem on a daily basis, then there's no drive for me to go fight that battle. So, and that problem statement meant something to me, to my family, to my neighbors, my friends, every day. You go out of your home and you live in Bangalore, Krishna. So how tricky it is for you to cross the Silk Board, and this 200-meter journey can sometimes take 1 hour. And if you think that there's some emotional cord which this situation is causing in your head or your heart, then you better go about it. So that was my reason. And although I was not crossing Silk Board, I was living in I live in Belandur, which is probably the Makkah or capital for all the traffic-related nuisance. So it was deep, and you are like, no, this cannot happen. And once the thought that let me pick a social problem, so that was the first thought. And second thought, okay, let me pick something which I am getting impacted on a daily basis, and that happened to the mobility part. I have no background in mobility. And after that, वो Mobi वाला जो बात you said ना कि चलो देखा जाएगा, so saying चलो देखा जाएगा, we'll figure it out. So it was a fairly daring and stupid move if you look at things in some perspective. But at the same time, I also think that if this problem is not being done by someone like my background and my journey, then who else will pick it up? So government is not going to do it. Government has got so many other things, and they can be an enabler, so we can keep on cribbing about it, but if we need to solve it, that it has to be one of us. So that's how I got myself committed, and I was able to excite 3 more co-founders who said, okay, just like me, all very successful serial entrepreneurs. One guy moved from US, one guy moved from Amsterdam, one guy moved from his own corporate sannyas, who made decent amount of money, got retired at the age of 40. I pulled him back when he was 50. So yeah, we had our own share of interesting journeys, and we said that okay, let's do it. Country needs it.
Amazing.
Correct.
And
so
did you all know each other?
The person who joined us when he was 50 is my
school together or
college senior from IIT Kanpur. One of my batchmates, Naveen, is CTO. Another Naveen. So we went to undergrad program together. And then the person who was living in Amsterdam was my school friend. So he was basically my childhood friend, not school friend. School friend is my CFO now. I was able to pull him from Kuwait. So a lot of friends and old trusted people.
Okay.
We basically came together. Yeah.
Yeah. Outstanding. No, trust is the bedrock of any founding team. Even if there is shortcoming on the ability front, trust will eventually make up for it, right? Always. Yeah. So before we talk about the initial days, how it was, how you touched the numbers and everything. There's an interesting story. When I used to live in Chicago, there is what is called as the downtown. In downtown, there is a place called Michigan Avenue. So it's a busy street for people who are from Bangalore, somewhat like MG Road. It's like a hub. So Chicago has a decent transportation system, urban mass mobility transportation system, which comes straight into the downtown and takes people between suburbs and within the city. So Michigan Avenue used to have an iconic train. And what happened was General Motors purchased that particular company, which used to run just that, and they soon dismantled it. Right?
Yeah.
The whole idea is, the larger goal obviously is, if there are more trains,
True.
you will have lesser number of cars. So in some sense, it's about feeding their own demand curve. But in India, we have a dichotomy where today in COVID, if you see, one of the biggest distressed news is about automobile manufacturing companies not growing because the economy is hit. But if you see as a parallel, our urban infrastructure is super bad, right? No matter how much we want to brag about it, we possibly have one of the most worst infrastructures on the planet, and there is so little accountability. But I think the right amount of attention by automobile companies, plus the ones like you, can bring that attention.
So first
It
of
is all
all,
about incentives.
I think on the
Do you foresee
infrastructure,
that happening anytime
particularly
at all?
around the safe infrastructure, if I can use this word for a moment. Not that our cities have not done that. At the same time, it was just the timing. So imagine that there is a Reliance Jio, but people do not have, or many people do not have smartphones, and vice versa. The magic will never happen. Same way, cities actually did build these dedicated bike corridors, but just because there were not many people who were willing to do, because of so many other challenges, by the way, those initiatives never took off, or they never were seen as a successful projects. If we talk about, let's say, Bangalore, so Bangalore in Jayanagar has beautiful bike lanes, where maybe on Saturday and Sundays there will be a bunch of enthusiasts, 100 of them, they will just do it. But government cannot build infrastructure which is being used for 2 hours per week by 100 people, because they have larger societal goals. Yeah.
No, I think I mean not even dedicated lanes. I think that's definitely a
Yeah.
pipe dream so far. The condition of the roads is so bad. I still think there is opportunity
Yeah.
for automobile companies. So let's take Bangalore itself as an example. At some degree, there are supposed to be 1 crore or 100 lakhs, right? 10 million vehicles.
Yeah.
Now, on an average, if each vehicle spent, now we are talking about normal time, not
Yeah.
COVID time consumption, spent 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees on petrol, 100 rupees on fuel every single day, that's 3,000 rupees per month, and that's 3,000
Yeah.
crores. Now, the Bangalore Metro project so far is supposed to have costed about 16 to 18,000 crores, which is equal to just 5 or 6 months of fuel expense. Now, if you see it in that context, and then the other thing is, they should be working with someone like you who's really solving the last mile problem, isn't it? It's a beautiful solution that you have. So on that count, I mean, I don't think there is an answer for it. Would love to hear your thoughts a little later, but I think we should jump to the scale part now. So talk about the initial days. How did it feel? You were working in a tech startup, you were working on phones and smartphones where it was unhindered, in some sense, unhindered access, right? And all of a sudden you're working in the rough and tumble, you're working with some borderline antisocial elements also. How was that initial start?
So
and when did you
we had
start
an
seeing
interesting
evidence
journey.
of people picking up
First
and
of
then
all,
appreciating what you
the
were?
thought of this problem itself was very drowning and very dreadful. Oh, you are doing this, okay. And then the moment you tell the solution, and solution that okay, we will put these bicycles uh, across the city, people will take it on their own using phone, and then they will leave it. But what about you? What about your person? We don't have any person. They will just use using phone. So the first reaction used to be, okay, maybe 1 month or 2 months you count your days and you will be bankrupt. So many of my friends, my relatives, my close relatives, they were like very clear that fine, you're doing it. 3 months, your story is anyway going to be over. You're talking about India. India is a Mahachor country. Everyone is everyone is like, just being there to just take your money and your bike will be gone. But we said, okay, no problem. We'll figure it out. We'll see how it goes. So we launched our service on first week of January. We put close to 100 bikes in this Belundur area. There's a tech park called EcoWorld, and a lot of people. And EcoWorld, RMG EcoWorld, which is actually not on the main road. So there's a main road where there's an Intel campus gate, and then people were taking shuttle, walking. It's almost 2 kilometer journey, 1.5 to 2 kilometer journey, which is, yeah, one can walk, but it takes like 15-20 minutes. So we thought that maybe this is a good use case. People will take bike from here and then leave it here, and then this whole rotation will. We put 100 bikes, and you won't believe that from day one there was a sense of curiosity. And okay, what is this blue color bikes? And we just had to nudge them that okay, you just go and just do this. And RNZ were also very kind. They gave us a space like in their tech park. So they say, okay, why don't you take these 7, 5, 6 spots? And they were very supportive of green mobility, sustainability. So that worked really well. And because the coolness of the product, where your phone is opening up a vehicle, and we became kind of an instant success. At the same time, the anti-social or the fear part was also running in parallel. So on third day, we lost our first bike, where someone in the middle of the night picked up one of our bikes probably in an auto rickshaw, and took it some 7-8 kilometers from this area. That poor fellow did not know that that bike has a GPS and he will be in trouble. So in no time we were able to catch him, bring him to the police, and then some fun happened. So that whole part about antisocial elements and people trying to break your lock, break your bike, all of that nuisance was part of the story. But we started seeing that the core consumer, they were willing to try out new things. And I must actually say that in that regard, Bangalore city is exceptionally high on that. So any new thing you bring which is tech oriented or tech powered, people in Bangalore are game for that. And we were sitting in the Makkah for technology, a lot of technology companies, etc. So that worked well. What was not working well though, where our original hypothesis was that we want to solve for 5-kilometer journey. And we started noticing that this bicycle form factor, people are okay taking the work related commute, maybe for 2 kilometer max. But after that, when we were talking to consumer that, hey, why you're not using Yulu every day? Or, oh, why you're not using it to start with? Oh, I live in this HSR layout, this is very far, or live in Sajapur Road, this is very far for me. So we were convinced, and you also made a point that India, they live very non-active lifestyle. So that is also true. Thanks to the weather, thanks to the road condition. So we were convinced that maybe this bicycle is a good product for 1.5 kilometer type of distance, and maybe for leisure. So if you go to some of the lakes, very big lakes in Bangalore, you will see a lot of people just roaming around in Yulu. You go to Cubbon Park, lot of bicycle trips. But for work commute, thank you. But if you look at the actual use case we started this company for, we were not seeing that product market fit at scale. And that's where the idea of bringing some power to the vehicle came into picture. We tried e-bikes, and there was also a thought which came just for some time that, hey, why don't we use the petrol scooters, because you don't have to do anything. There's a scooter made by Honda and TVS. You just put your IoT and then it's good to go. But there we took a little bit contrary approach. We thought that using petrol, first of all, will not make sense business wise. At the same time, we were also not convinced that while solving for air pollution is not our primary mission, but it has been a secondary mission which we have been very excited about. And if we use petrol scooter, then we are not solving that problem or not contributing to that. So, but I must say that the reason for not doing petrol was more financial than the secondary, not to just take all the credit on that. But in our subconscious mind, we were also not fine with it. So the next best answer was electric mobility. But back then, I'm talking about Q4 of 2018, electric mobility was not that easy. There was no vehicle, there was no battery, there was no charging infrastructure. People did not know how they will play out in India. And then there were playbooks where there were companies in our space who went ahead and looked for the growth, the scale phenomena, and very differently. They're like, okay, let me not solve for the parking, let me not solve for the electric scooter, let me not solve for the battery, let me just go and grow. Took a contrarian approach. We were like, no, this is anyway not going to happen. And if I am approaching this business for next 5 to 10 years horizon, then it does not matter that I'm not growing from a fleet perspective for next couple of years. So we ended up investing a lot of our bandwidth resources in building this new form factor which India has not seen, which is a purpose-built vehicle, solve for batteries, solve for charging infrastructure, policy framework. And then it came to a situation where the other companies who were just going like this on the back of a easy to play playbook, they failed because it's just something which is not good. It is not good. And we basically, in a slow and steady manner, we started building the business. And today we are probably one of the most, one of the company which has got the most level of knowledge and insights about electric mobility business in India. It has got a lot of small nuances, and now we are ready for hyperscale. So as we look at our plan going forward, so we will be growing 20x in next 2 years at least. And despite of like we being the largest company at a reasonable scale, we basically have now a business plan to support 20x growth at least in India. And we think that sky is the limit. We have hit product market fit spot. We saw huge retention curve, how people are using our product, why they are using it. And Corona, which was actually just wrecked the whole backbone of the mobility companies, we actually were one of the beneficiaries of this, where people started valuing their personal safety due to Corona as the most important lever while traveling. So people stopped using bike taxis, auto rickshaws, buses, and they were using Yulu, because on Yulu they are only one, there's no co-passenger, no driver, they don't have to deal with anyone. And then to make things better, we were sanitizing our vehicles multiple times per day. And this whole safety narrative became the most important criteria. So earlier we were catering to the white collar guys, but they started working from home. But then we saw that, oh, there's so many other people who also need to move. So we started configuring our services in different parts of the city and different spots of the city, because our product services that you have to pick up our vehicle from the network of parking areas what we have created, we call them Yulu zone. So earlier we did not have, for example, Yulu zone at colleges, at factories, at those high street shops. So we built that, and with that we got people who were working in garment manufacturing, factory setup, kids, students going to college, coaching institutes, etc. All of that happened in less than 6 months. And today we believe that something which we wish that will happen in 3 years, it all happened like much earlier in our journey due to Corona. So I remember we were able to hit 1,000 rides maybe in our
How much
second
time
month.
did it take to hit 1,000 rides?
Yeah, so we deployed approximately 300, 400 bicycles, and each bicycle used to do some 4 to 5 trips. So it was pretty steep. So our business, Krishna, is because it is linked with an asset. You cannot just grow infinitely. So there is a hurdle all the time that how many assets you have on the road. So we basically started with 100 bikes for first week and then added another 100. So by end of the month we had like 250 or 300 bikes, and literally in the second month of our journey we started hitting 1,000 trips on a daily basis. So that was pretty quick. So 10,000 journey also happened.
Very interesting.
I think
when
within
did you
6
hit
months.
10,000?
And after that, we started
What was
seeing that
different?
okay, things are not going to go hockey stick, and we also started seeing the behavior that this whole piece of we looking at bicycle as the primary form factor is not going to work. So we had almost maybe 3,000, 3,500 bicycles, and we are also live in not only in Bangalore but also in Pune. So we started seeing that how two cities are looking different, how usage phenomena is basically working for us. And by then we were very clear that when we were at 10,000 journey, we were very clear that if we are looking at a journey to 100,000, we need to think beyond bicycle. So then we started working towards this whole electric mobility product. And electric mobility product was also, so it was actually a super hit product from day one. The moment we launched, we became the coolest thing to do in Bangalore. So I think electric mobility product was day one, out of box. This is out of the park sixer, and operationally also from a profitability perspective, from day one we were like operationally profitable. So it was just very cool.
Interesting. So I'll tell you what the view for me from outside looks like. When it comes to funding, because all of this also requires, because it's an asset heavy model like you mentioned, right? And in a moment I'll describe an asset light model, which I think you may have already contemplated because you've done so much innovation yourself, which is, so EV is a popular category. A lot of people want to see EVs grow, and the urban mobility, last mile and connectivity is quite a bit of problem itself. So there might be a lot of good intentions, and therefore it's a big enough problem to solve. So was raising funds easy? And I'm sure your own track record in InMobi has played a positive role in that.
When you
but
have
that's
been
what the view
part
from the
of,
outside looks like.
some
Is that the
journey
same?
where you have
Is
seen
that the
scale.
same view from the inside as well?
So raising initial round of capital is relatively easier, but just because solving these problems are not easy and cool. So unfortunately, when you talk about, so what are the sources of funding? So I know that when you say funding, you typically indirectly mean it's the risk capital, VC money, as we say, and VC money, as you know, is not their money. They are fund managers. They're someone else's money, right? And they tend to put their money on those companies where they can see a disproportionate ROI.
Right.
So their measurement of, or their reason for investment into the company has no business with what you're doing. It is all about that, okay, my $100 will become $500 in this time period, and this is my ability to get this money in this time frame. So it is that simple. We may talk about vision, we can we can talk about so many inspiring things, but honestly, it doesn't matter. At least not in India. So then you basically have 2 points. One point is, oh, you do what VCs want, or you do what you want. So we chose that, okay, we'll do what actually what society wants and what then we want indirectly, or you can say the association route, transition route. So we said, okay, we'll do what we want and we'll solve the problem, holistically. There's a lot of, challenges around you being an asset heavy company. You know what? There's no business in this planet that you can build out of thin air. Someone has to put an asset, but the asset is ownership is distributed, or is getting concentrated in one company. That is the real risk and real the problem, right? So not that Uber and Ola, they also need an asset, but that asset is owned by that poor guy who has put his entire life saving to buy a car, and right now he's in trouble because bank guys are chasing. At the same time, I believe that ultimately it's the goodness of the business model. If you are able to create enough and more profit margin from your business, the value you are adding, then it does not matter whether it is an asset light or asset heavy. So this is how you look at things holistically. I was not convinced that the business model, at least used by the taxi hailing companies, car hailing companies, taxi hailing companies, they will ever make money in India. And it was very evident that even if they do, then they will not grow, because there are only 5% Indians who can afford that price point. How many people in the country can afford 10,000 rupees just for the office commute? And they cannot have their own car or vehicle. So that number is very, very thin. So from us, large scale impact was much more important than we just trying to create a small niche impact. And also not the impact, but also the size of the business which we are building. So there's no fun in you doing, you're kind of moving 10 steps back. So we were very clear that affordability is an important element, along with sustainability, efficiency, everything. And we took a path where our solution set demanded what we are doing and why we are doing. So the moment you put a driver, for example, the economic model does not make sense. So you may even do it on the two-wheeler, again you will be supply constrained soon, because you need to make 20,000 rupees for that driver. And the moment you have to make 20,000 rupees for the driver, either you are going to be supply constrained, or you will be not able to offer a price point that 100 million people need in this country. So we basically approach things very fundamentally. And our notion was that, okay, we may have some challenges in the beginning, because people will say, okay, you're still not truly profitable, and how much you can raise equity capital to buy asset. But we are now at a junction where we basically, if not today, but very soon, will be generating so much of money, not only to take care of our operational cost, but also the leasing cost of the vehicle. And towards end of this year, all of our new assets will be coming through lease financing. And this, imagine there's an asset co where there are financial institutions who are willing to give you money and willing to basically give you lease financing, where the asset belongs to them and you are the operator. And thanks to lot of money being available for now, climate change, sustainability, there's way too much of goodness in terms of the money, where if you are doing something which is reducing the greenhouse emission and also the climate change, the type of money, at the price at which it is coming, the quantum, it is the next level. So we are actually there. I know our mid period where we were still trying to prove that, okay, we can make profitability in this equation. That took a little bit longer, and it is actually not because of anything else, but to Corona. it kind of pushed us by almost 6 months. But big picture remains same. We are almost there, and then it's a hockey stick after that. So we never look back. And we only have raised, by the way, $20 million in venture capital money. We never came from that school of thought that you blow money. So you asked me this question, growth versus profitability. Profitability in our business is not a wish. It is actually a requirement. Otherwise, you keep on burning your equity capital. So there's no fun for you to work so hard and get diluted to a small number from an ownership perspective. So it's a part of the playbook that you raise that much, which can help you in building the use case, prove in that small microcosm your Lego block is ready, and now you go and scale. So we are basically now getting to that stage where we are now at that scale where we are just going for a big ride from here.
How much of last mile have you been able to solve in all of this? Because in Bangalore, especially, for instance, I have to feign ignorance of metro status in Pune though. The last mile, given the metro is pretty reasonable, I think in another 3 years, we'll see all of Whitefield and KR-Puram also get stitched up.
Yeah.
But the last mile is a problem, and there I'm imagining a shared asset model. If you are familiar with Zipcar in the US, where it is like somewhat like owning, co-sharing a bunch of vehicles.
Yeah.
You don't really own a particular vehicle, you are owning. So what that does to you is, for example, if I pick up a Yulu bike from a particular railway station, I can come and park it at my house, right? And if the railway station is about 3 kilometers from the metro station is 3 kilometers from my home, what that does to your cost is you do not have to incur the cost of picking up the bike if I'm going to work tomorrow again. So do you foresee that model coming around?
Yeah.
And therefore, I think it kills two birds with one stone. One is shared ownership means it reduces your asset cost, although you're leasing it, I can understand.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it reduces your cost of returning
so
that bike to that
Krishna,
user, because this will be in deep residential territory. And the last thing is it also solves
we actually
the last
started
mile
our
problem.
service as a
Is that coming up on the horizon, or you see it differently?
And last mile for us on day one was this Intel gate where people were stepping down from bus and they were using Yulu service to get to EcoWorld, or someone living, but at the same time in Bangalore, because we do not have metro coverage yet, at least where the people are working, the near mile phenomena was also very big for us. And what do I mean by near mile? Near mile is a phenomena where you live in Koramangala and you are working in EGL. There's no metro, there's no bus. You just start from your home, go to your workplace directly. And it's a very big use case, the way our city has grown. So you have those pockets of people living in Electronic City, in Whitefield area, in ORR. They're all youngsters. They live in PGs or people who are young professional. So they prefer to live not too far from their work area. They are the one who do not have any vehicle. So they basically become one of the top customer segment. And the next big customer segment for us is the metro user, where they are coming to metro station of Baipnahalli, SV Road, working for our RMG Infinity, Bagmani Tech Park, or come down at Indranagar metro station, go to EGL, or get to Trinity Circle, go to various offices in MG Road area. So we actually have solved the last mile problem really, really well. So this is what, by the way, is the genesis of our business. And the Zipcar example, what you gave, is what actually is our service all about. The only difference is, instead of you taking a car, you are taking a Yulu from a place, our parking area, and then putting it at your building parking, which is again by Yulu. So, and in the morning you come back and you pick from the same pool, you pick one bike and leave it at the metro station, someone else uses it. So this is a whole shared economy, and the bike, by the way, changes hands at least 4 times in our case in a given day. So it basically reduces the cost of the ownership of the vehicle for you reduces the number of vehicles required to serve the same set of people who would have bought individual vehicles for themselves. So it's a good thing for everyone. So Pune, by the way, clarification, we are not present with electric
So I'm
mobility,
thinking million rides
but we are
now,
present in Mumbai
10
and
million
Delhi.
vehicles
So
in
Mumbai, for
Bangalore
example,
alone.
we are in
We'll-
BKC.
we'll
So
park
people
Pune aside
using
for a second.
local train, so they come to Kodla, they come to Bandra, and they using Guru, they come to BKC. So it's the last mile.
Okay. Ah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. BKC. Yeah. Interesting. So if I just say that a million is happening in Bangalore, just for discussion's sake, that means 10 million vehicles, which is 1 crore in Bangalore. And let's say on an average, about 40% of them take a trip every day. That's literally 4 million trips a day. So that's 120 million, just Bangalore, which means at 1 million scale, you're starting to make some sense in the minds of people to say, let's look at this. A lot of people should not be owning some of those vehicles. It's a ubiquity of the presence. You have enough Yulu zones where somebody looks at them and then tells me, possibly I don't need it. If I do need a personal vehicle for work, maybe I'll complement this with an Uber, or maybe if there is metro, I'll go with metro. So I think I'm seeing the need for somebody stitching it all together. So in the US, you have something called as commute. So in Google Maps, when you search, get directions to a destination, if that particular area is supported by public transportation, it'll give you Uber plus public transportation plus walk, that kind of an option. It is still early days in India, though. I think we are likely to see that. It's been great. So two last questions, Amit.
So to your last point,
what are some decisions that you've
so we see public transportation
that have not worked out,
complementing
and what are some decisions that
and
have
that's how
worked
you
out?
can move millions of people in an economic manner and environmentally sensitive manner. The decisions actually which have not worked out, it's a difficult question, because every mistake you do, you learn something. I will not say that, oh, we did bicycles and it was a bad decision. I think because of bicycle we learned something. We also realized that this whole concept of you can leave the bike anywhere, it was a disaster. Our theft rate was high, our vandalism rate was very high. But then we said, okay, let's create these parking areas so that people can pick and choose. I honestly speaking don't see them as a, it's a journey. Things which you can say maybe I can regret, they're typically more on the hiring front. But we are so early in our journey where yet to basically say that, okay, I hired this guy in my team and that person was a disaster. Fortunately, we did not have to hire a lot of heavyweights. We have been very hands down. So typically people in our company have been, so our average age is around 25 years, maybe 24 years only. So we have hired relatively young set of individuals. And when you typically hire young set of individuals, and even if you have made a wrong hiring, then replacing them is not a very expensive process, versus you trying to bring a country head and that person is a disaster. And I have made that mistake at InMobi. Otherwise, I honestly don't regret city choices. Maybe we could have done, I don't know, electric mobility to start with, but and the decision we have taken, which probably we are very proud of, looking at the outcome, at least at the current state of the other peer group, that we did not just flow into this whole notion of growth without substance. I think that decision we probably should be proud of in our history. Many a time we used to get this FOMO, that, oh my goodness, one more $100 million coming in funding, and what the hell we are up to, and why are we doing so hard work when everything is there on the platter. And we used to be asked this question by the team, that why are not doing this petrol scooter? It's so easy, no friction. But somewhere the instinct said that no, this probably will solve for your next 6 months, but it will not be working out. But fingers crossed, you don't know, because the game is not over yet. We have not painted in our big cities blue color. So once we see cities like Bangalore, million people, so we're touching million people in cities like Bangalore, where the population is around 14 to 15 million.
Right.
Then I will be very happy that yes, we are making a difference to our cities.
Oh, certainly. No, I can't understate the impact of what you just said. It must have taken a lot of courage to take that off the beaten path. And I'm sure you can possibly speak an hour just on that particular decision itself. Amazing. Just one last, before I ask you what you read, one last thing. Do you regret leaving InMobi at all? I know you will succeed. By the way, I think this will succeed. I think your value system is right. Your moorings are right. I think the goals that you set for yourself sound right to me. And I know you're going to make that. And this is, in my opinion, you're just getting started. India is such a big country, and this is such a big problem. And what you have right now is necessary. The evidence you have is necessary in your mind to say, I think I'm on the verge of hockey stick. I think we'll see multiple hockey sticks. This is an area for that.
My co-founders.
But then, a part of you.
So I think I will be lying if I say no.
Because it's sort of like a rocket ship, right?
That is more of the emotional side. Do I miss being part of InMobi's journey professionally? Honest answer is no. I'm truly enjoying what I'm doing.
Okay.
And my heart and my, all the best wishes are for the company. So, we live, by the way, not too far from each other. So Naveen lives right next door. We meet, we chat. And so those things happen. And a lot of, other InMobi colleagues, they're also friends. Unfortunately, my college friends are less friends than my colleagues, because you spend just way too much time with them. All of my best friends are my, ex-colleagues or my current colleagues. And I think this decision professionally also, you probably, or this answer you can probably give when I'm 50. So, and if your criteria is that criteria is you would have been more successful, maybe richer. I don't know what is the definition of success for, it's a very vague term. But for me, the definition of the success is my own happiness and the impact I have made, then I think the decision so far has been great. So fingers crossed. And if Yulu becomes big, successful, I'll be very happy. If it does not, I'll still be happy that at least someone has made an honest attempt to a real world problem. Yeah. We have 8,000 of them by then on the road. So bicycles, I don't talk about it, but we have 8,000.
Will it be successful? The bicycles are going to come back, and I still think we are going to see more avatars of the problems that you're going.
Oh,
wow. They're going to come back. I know for sure, because in this lockdown last year, I sold my old bike because my previous fancy bike was stolen, and I told myself, till I bicycle regularly, I'm not going to invest in a fancy bike. And I sold it around May of last year, just when the lockdown was eased or maybe started. Funny thing is, for the next 7 months, I never got a bicycle. It was out of stock every single place. So I know for a fact that bicycles are going to catch up. It's going to come back. More possibly, the area that I live around is quite hilly, and I'm a bicycle enthusiast, so therefore I don't mind it. But for flatter regions, I'm sure it will come back. I'm sure you'll see.
But my reading is not typically the books. So I used to read a lot when I used to travel a lot.
So one last thing, do you read?
Either watching movies, which also became, you have exhausted them all on Emirates, and then you started reading books. So for me, self-help, business, biographies, etc. So those are my favorite genres. And these days they're more about just reading. There's so much of things where you can just consume things on the go. So blogs and generally lot of research papers, etc. So reading books to these kind of things actually become more prominent for me.
Yeah.
So the most recent work, so although I read a lot about now mobility, so this was an interesting paper from McKinsey.
What was the last thing you read that
which talks about, so it's basically a very small 10-pager note, that this whole phenomena of mobility becoming green, what does it mean? And why, so in the context of, for example, even India, this two-wheeler will become even more important. How do you solve for that whole problem of energy to metal? There's an underlying theme that we are talking about everything becoming electric, but do we have those precious metal or not? How do you recycle that? So there's a very interesting analysis that we are not there yet. So if we have to convert everything to electric mobility, particularly the battery technology requires some serious overhaul. What are the geopolitical risks in that? So there's a complete chain of thoughts and facts. So that is one I recently read, like last week only. Yes. Yeah.
You remember that arc reactor in Iron Man? The thing that he puts in his heart. So I think we'll need a mini arc reactor, the size of a tiny peppercorn in each bite, and not drawn from any of the precious metals that China has already cornered. So on that note, Amit, it's been fantastic having you. I love that you went into so much depth in each of your responses. I can't sing enough praises of the problem that you're working on and the evidence that you already built. I know you're going to scale peaks, and I say this to everyone that's on the show, that we're going to come back and talk
Thanks,
to you.
Krishna. It's a pleasure once again, and wish you all the best.
And Mount Everest
Bye-bye.
is not there yet. You still have K2, Goodwin, a lot of peaks you have to scale. We wish you the very best, and it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed listening to the show and want to help support our show, please leave us a review by visiting our website maharajasofscale.com/reviews. It helps other people like you discover the show. I totally appreciate your support. If you're a founder or an entrepreneur or anyone interested in or working with startups, this show is where you see discussions in depth about founder stories, their playbooks, and learn more about growth strategies. Visit our website for regular updates or wherever you get your podcasts and discover more awesome episodes. I'll see you on the next episode. Click on the bell icon and hit subscribe to get the latest episodes.